Welcome in my place in the sun here on YouTube, and here is the first look in 52 Weeks of Tarot, a January edition in which I'm gonna discuss what decks I use in January and also how did it go, what pairs maybe I found out with the decks. First of all, like part of my practice every day in the morning is looking at the guidebook of the decks. So to make it a bit less overwhelming and not feel like I have to go really in detail, I did the little monthly calendar part as my guidebook study part. So this is also something that Magpie Tarot is using in her like study videos when she is using the same kind of layout for studying the decks. I really enjoy that this is such a low effort practice because you have a little square that you have to fill with information and that's it. It doesn't feel so overwhelming and I can still do it even on the days when I'm not feeling the best. I use the left side for writing down which deck I used in that week, and then each day of the week I put one card and look through the guidebook and write down the most important things. With that study, I didn't start actually on January 1st. I started already in the end of December just to make it match. When I was trying to look how I could distribute those decks, it made more sense for me to start in the last few days of December. So that's already what happened with the Wildwood Tarot, that it already started in December. So here's the guidebook part. Beside it, I'm using my weekly part of the calendar as spot to do a little reading. At the start of the week, I'm doing a weekly spread in which I'm looking into what I should pay attention to this week, maybe what lessons are coming for this week. And then, based on that big reading, I'm going into smaller questions, more detailed questions throughout the week, and then working with the deck like this every day. So every day I pull one card for the guidebook, and then I'm doing a little reading for like one question that I go a little bit more into reading with a deck, and sometimes I also then pair it with something for that reading. Beside it, I play the games, I do different tarot activities with the deck to get it to know it better, and also try other spreads. If the book has some spreads, I'm trying them out, and if not, if there's some spread in particular that I would like to try, I'm doing also that. So coming to the first deck that I used, it is Wildwood Tarot, and I work with it quite a bit. I was the most excited about anytime I'm starting a new practice, I get super excited, I get overboard. So usually the first thing that I'm using is the most used thing. So I can really see it with Wildwood Tarot to the level that it even went for a walk to the forest with me. But I think this is a deck that really wants that. It wants to be in nature. It wants to read for those bigger topics, those really spiritual topics. I could really feel it when working with it. So Wildwood Tarot was created in looking into the ecosystem, our role in the nature and ecosystem. So it really come off this week to me as one that wants to read about what can I do for the world, how can I contribute, how can I do better myself so also others can be in the better world. It leave a huge impact on me. I can say that this was, I think, the most impressive week out of this 5 weeks that I did so far in this practice. I really enjoyed working with it. I had a long break working with Wildwood Tarot. I did before the yearly practice with it, a year in the Wildwood. I really loved it, and then somehow after I finished this practice, I still use it for it some time, and then it got pushed to the back with new things that were coming in, and somehow I was not reaching for it, and I forgot how much I'm really enjoying it. The only thing is, it's not always easy to read it without a guidebook. This is really where you want to go into guidebook and take a look at it, especially when it comes to majors and chords. With the minors, you can play with what you're seeing, plus you're getting the keywords, so you can play out of it, so you can work with it. But I noticed that for the majors or cards which are animals, it's much better to use the guidebook. So it's a deck that demands from me slowing down, opening the book, taking a look, what I can find there, what is inspiring to me, play with what I can see. So it's not really a fast reader, but it really goes deep for me in this spiritual, animistic way. I really enjoy also taking it to the forest and doing a little reading in the forest, in the like winter forest. So that was also an interesting part of that experience. For the pairs, I can maybe keep it like this. Since it was still Yule time when I was working with it, I paired it with Yule Oracle. I will maybe not be able to fully fit more than 2 cards, but it worked really beautifully in this time. It has this depth and reflection that comes in the Yule time, but also this need for slowing down, for taking a moment to look at the message, to really sit with it, to think about it. Another deck that I also pair with it, which is not exactly a visual pair, but it really worked in this way how Wildwood Tarot for me is this very spiritual deck. It's not like everyday questions about work, colleagues deck. It's really going deeper into my spiritual path, and it's made me think about pairing it with a Celestial Oracle from Broccoli magazine, as they're both going into this something beyond, something far away. It's not really a pair that is maybe visually working, but when it comes to messages and where we were going with it, I was really in love with this pair. I use it also for some other readings. So that would be Celestial Oracle. And the last pair that really worked for me in this week, one of the spreads that you can find in the guidebook from the Wildwood Tarot is tree world tree spread. So I thought about using with it the Tree Whispers Oracle Dreamers Dream Traveler edition. This is a deck that has for me really this winter time energy. I really also of that slowing down and paying attention to something much more basic and grounded. There's no leaves, or sometimes there are still leaves, but this is autumn, something dying, something maybe it seems like nothing is happening, but actually still a lot is going on. So I use it for that spread. And it's not exactly, like I said, visual pair also, but it really went into this reading. It was really deep, thought-provoking one that I could really sit with and think about what's going on. I think there's also the tree energy of the oracle matches the fact that here we are in the wildwood, we are in the forest, so it feels like we are here meeting the spiritual guides that inspired creation of that deck, if this makes sense. So I can really recommend it, and but like I said again, this is not one when you're going fast through the reading. You really sit with it, you think about it. Yeah, So that will be the first week of my practice. In the next week, I reached for Monsoon Tarot. So, Monsoon Tarot is a tarot that I'm using always in the winter time. Somehow I am not really able to use it in any other season. It really comes with this childlike imagination. It's for me very airy deck. And comes with this changing of the perspective, because if you try to read it like a Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, you will be struggling a lot. But if you let this deck guide you and follow what's happening in the art and where it's taking you, it reads in an amazing way. But you have to give up what you know, you have to give up what you think it should be, and just allow yourself to go into places, follow the little threads in the imagination. It has this like dreamlike properties, but I don't really use it for the dream work. Like I said, I have a deck for the dream work that works for me. But this is really when I want to break out of the certain ways of thinking, when I want to look at the problem from completely different perspective, when I want to practice also my symbolism muscles. There's a lot of working with symbolism. The author was portraying her own experiences and also her mythological studies in this deck. So there are some little pieces here and there that you can reach for and see where they're gonna take you. So I really enjoyed this deck, and I was really happy to spend some time with it. But like I said, it's also winter time. It's the time when I'm spending quite a bit of time with it. For the pairs, I didn't really find any new pairs that were working for me. I was trying some things, but they really were not doing it. One of the pairs that I am using is Imbolc, a Season of the Witch Imbolc edition. So this is one of those decks that really works for me when it comes to Monsoon Tarot. It brings this little whimsy and Winterland energy to it. It still invites this like slowness and wonder. It really reminds me of the times when I was younger and I was really into manga and anime, and I was really in this world, and it brings this joy of a child of finding something new and exciting and going into certain stories and exploring them. So this brings like Imbolc. Oracle has this like storybook, children's storybook, kind of an art, a folksy art that plays into this. This is, like Japanese or Chinese inspired deck, and here we have this more like folksy European book with fairy tales, and together they create this childlike wonder. The other deck, which is actually two decks that I am using usually with the Monsoon Tarot, is a combination of Goddess Love Oracle and Goddess Dream Oracle. So it comes... it's also an oracle that has, for me, even though it's a mixture of different seasons, for me this is very much winter, spring oracle that I am using in this time. Especially the Goddess Dream Oracle has a little bit more of this winter energy about it. Is this slowing down? Is like soft taking care of yourself? It has one keyword, but also a little phrase under it, so you can play from both of it. It's like a little bit soft advice when you're struggling in the winter time and you want this soft hug from a grandma. This is how this deck feels to me. It goes also in a guidebook into the message. It's very often associated with like goddess work, but very often there is not a goddess chosen for it. It's more of this like divine energy that is coming through the messages. There is a lot of like self-care and self-love. So it really brings this softness onto Monsoon Tarot that sometimes can have really wild depictions of the cards, but then we're bringing it back to this little oracle that grounds it in love and care. So that was the second week that I worked with Monsoon Tarot. The guidebook, unfortunately, in this one is not super helpful. I would really want that the deck to have like more in-depth guidebook for what artists had in mind when creating the art. It would be really awesome. Unfortunately, we have to just work with our own imagination. The third week, it was Alchemical Tarot Renewed. This is a 6th edition with the blue skies from Robert M. Place. It's a new deck that I got late last year. I managed to get it secondhand, which is for me a great chance, especially that it's right now, I think, already out of print. So I was really lucky to get it in a really good price and secondhand. I have also a huge book by Robert and Place that is going more in deep in the tarot meaning, but it's like for more than just the deck. But I didn't want to feel like this practice is too overwhelming. So I was just using a little guidebook that you can find on his page. I just printed it out for my own use and binded it into a little book, so it's easier for me to use because I don't really like using the guidebook on my phone. So I just printed it out. I can really recommend because the write-ups for the each card are relatively short, but there's still enough information to go off it. But at the same time, it's not as overwhelming as the big book, and at the same time, a small book that comes with a deck, there's barely any information. For me, it's not really useful. I cannot really, it doesn't go any deeper into like alchemical symbols that are portrayed on the deck, and this is a deck that I for sure want to study at some point in some bigger form and go a little bit deeper into it, but for now I don't feel like I have capacity for that. But this little form really get me to enjoy the deck, and I really loved it. It really went into this land of transformation and how we can transform ourselves. It really wanted to talk about those bigger topics. It really wanted to show how the alchemy can be used in a psychological way and how we can transform our thoughts, our patterns. So in this week, we did a little bit work around it, and for sure I would like to work a little bit more on it. I think within this format, I get really interested in a deck, and I'm like, oh, there's so much more I could dig into it. But then I'm moving to the next one, so sometimes maybe I'm missing a little bit to have opportunity to work longer. But of course, I can still continue working with this one while working also on the next deck. But like I said, for now in this winter time, and also still having a lot of problems with health, I feel like it's too much. But I am really excited that I'm building back this spark around tarot and around going deeper, because for a very long time I had a really hard time using tarot because of how foggy my brain was, how hard it was for me to think, how hard it was for me to hold objects. So just the aspect that I can slowly come back and do it in my own ways is already really exciting for me. When it comes to pairs for this deck, I don't think it's going to be very surprising that one of them is going to be Kim Cran's The Wild Unknown Alchemy Tarot, which is really a deck that I absolutely love. I somehow don't reach for it, and then suddenly I remember about it, and then I reach for it, and I want to use it all the time. So it's very much on and off oracle for me. I get really into it, then I have a break, and then I get really into it. For sure, it gets much more use in the winter time when I have time to sit with those messages, to go deeper into it, and explore. So it was a great pair. It was working amazingly together. So I can really highly recommend it. With the Wildwood, I usually have to go into the guidebook, so this is not really a deck that I am able to read right now completely without using the guidebook. So this is, like I said, again, a little bit slower process, but I think also for this work, when this deck very much wants to talk about psychological things, unconscious, conscious, etc., having a time when you can read into both guidebooks, take a look what pulls you in, what thread you want to grab or where you want to go is actually beneficial. That actually gives you time to work on those topics and pay attention and really go deeper into the reading and not try to rush through it. The second deck that I also use for it is by Usi. It's Materia Prima, so also Alchemical deck. This is also a deck for which I need guidebook. It's especially that it only has the name of the element on it. It does not have any keywords, so if you don't have associations with certain element, it's gonna be hard to read it. But like I said, in this practice, I really prefer slowing down, taking a look how the art works with each other, which elements are talking to each other, and then also how guidebooks can cooperate, how they can create this picture that allows me to go deeper and deeper into certain patterns, thoughts, beliefs, etc. So this is Materia Prima by Olsi. In the next week, I moved on to the deck that I really love. This is deck that is one of the most used decks in my collection, and out of the simple reason, I'm Slavic. So I wanted a deck that can play into my own heritage, into world of my spirits. It's something that I am using also for ancestral work, but more in the context of like spiritual world and not so much my ancestors, so more of like spirits of the land, of ancestors of the Slavic land, but not really my own ancestors. But also I use it for other readings. This is really a deck that for me works for many different things. Is a very straightforward, bland guy, but I'm not surprised. This is a Slavic way. So it really just says how things are. It's for me an easy reader. Right now, Taroteca Studio come up with a guidebook. Well, guidebook, just like a little in-depth going into the stories from the major arcana, so like the myths and legends that appear in major arcana. On some of the minors, I can recognize the legends and stories that are hidden within, and some of them are just coming back to the folk lore of the Slavic countries, or like our traditions, etc. So this is a Slavic tarot, and this time I pair it with Lenormand, Scandi Knight Lenormand. It's one that I got in a Kickstarter last year. I do not really know how to read Lenormand yet in a proper way, but I really want to learn at some point. But at the same time, I still can use it in this more oracle way. I also use the guidebook that comes with this Lenormand, and based on that, I mix it with the meanings. It really plays into this folk art, simplified art, next to one that has more details. There is much more going on in Slavic tarot, so I wanted something a little bit more simple, something that comes into one little symbol and that I can work with, it really worked out well. I have another Lenormand that is also surrounding Slavic legends, but I did not feel right now like pulling it out. So even though I have much more things that I normally pair with Slavic tarot, I just really felt like I need something more simple and pare down. I had like a harder time also, so I needed something that I can really easily navigate through, easily read, and I don't have to think too much about it. Especially the week earlier I had Alchemical Tarot, which takes quite a bit of brain energy to go through. I of course love this deck, so it was not a surprise that I have really good time. I also played a few games. I learned a new game that was created by Lisa Pepes, the dungeon crawling solo game with cards. So I really enjoy it with this one. It really fits this dungeon and monsters and knights, heroes energy. So it really worked well for the dungeon crawler. So it was a lot of fun, and like this I could also play something lighter and not only do readings, because like I said, the week that I was working on it was a really hard week for me, so I didn't want to add too much on my plate. And the last deck will be a deck that is a little bit of a problem maker for me. So this is the Nordic Myth Tarot. This is Icelandic deck, printed in Iceland from Icelandic publisher, created over there. This is something I got as a present from my really dear friend. She brought it for me, knowing that I really love tarot. And in the concept, I absolutely should love this deck. This is something that is grounded in myths, in Nordic myths, that I really enjoy. I really like working with the myth. I really like working with the stories. It's also having associations with certain archetypes, which I also like to work with. So in the guidebook, it goes into the archetypes for the cards, not for all cards, but majors and courts have the archetype associated. There is connection to what story the deck is. Each card is connected, but I really struggle to read with it. Like, it comes really flat for some reason. Always struggle to get like some message. I really have to force it, and I don't really like in tarot when I have to force the message. It doesn't feel right. So I was also interested how working for a week with it, if it's gonna help me to change my way of thinking. The thing is, it's also not exactly my art style, so it's also hard for me to pair it with something within my deck collection. So it was not an easy job. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure if this deck gonna stay. I'm still figuring it out. For sure, I'm giving it right now a really good chance by spending a week with it, by trying different things with it. It is not really easy experience with reading. And it is a pity for me because, like I said, this is a present from a dear friend. It's harder for me to pass on something. I don't have a problem to let go of my decks, but if something is a present from a dear person, it's much harder. And then it's also because this is a deck that is from Iceland. It's not a deck that I can easily get again. I don't think you can really get it anywhere else. You have to get it shipped, which is expensive. It makes me slow down when it comes to making decision if I wanted to stay or not. But like I said, it's one that I'm a bit struggling with. So for one pair that work with, but this is my oracle that works with really most of the things. I really love working with it out of its simplicity. So this is Spreadcrafter's oracle. It is normally used for making spreads, but you can also use it as an oracle. It works very well. I really like the simplicity of like having keyword. There are some little descriptions that you can also play off, and it's also working with a color, which I really like working with my readings, with the color and how it plays within the card. So where this color appears within a tarot card, and how does it connect into another reading, another meaning, another layer of the reading. So working with those two was much more pleasurable. But like I said, this is one of my favorite oracles I really love working with. So whenever I'm working with this one, I do really enjoy it. So like I said, this is one that I am still struggling with, still trying to find my opinion about it. I tried to do the deck interview spread with it. It also come up with this undertone of like, this is a deck that needs time and might need certain sacrifice, and it might be that our way of working is more figuring out how to let go of certain expectation, because like I said, this is a present, this is something that I was expecting to be great and that I would really love to work with it, and yet somehow I'm really struggling with it. Another pair that I also tried, due to the strong colors that you can see in the deck, is Aboriginal Ancestral Wisdom Oracle, which is really simple but really effective oracle. I really love working with it. The concept is quite simple. It has words. There is more positive aspect of a certain theme, and then on the other side we have the negative aspect of the same theme. So like two sides of the coin when it comes to certain emotion or feeling or sensation. So this is something that I really like working with. It's very simple and yet it's really punchy. So here we have satisfied with the sun, so it also works very well when it comes to meaning. It can also play off with the colors. So here we have reckless with the emperor, but also the blues are matching the rest of the card. So it's also one where you can play where the color appears in the card and how the word fits with the rest of the meaning. So it worked very well, but still it didn't have this satisfying, like juicy sensual feeling that I'm getting when I'm really enjoying my reading. So this is still a deck that I will have to think about and see what's gonna come out of it. But like I said, this whole practice for me is a chance to work for some time with the decks and see which ones maybe are not working for me anymore. Maybe I'm moved from this way of working. I can also can also help me classify decks in for which practices this deck might work for me, and then see maybe within that category I have too many decks and in the end I am choosing something completely different all the time because I prefer it. So for me this is really good opportunity to look at my collection and see how it's working with each other, what I can take out of it, what is really my practice right now, because the practice is also changing in time. I can really see already shift within those, I think, 5 years that I'm working with oracles and tarot. So I want to make sure that what I have I can use, and what I'm using is matching what I truly need, and not keeping to some old version of myself that is not anymore based in my own reality. Like I said, I have also a lot of health problems, which make me sometimes feel really overwhelmed, and I'm also cannot really take care of many things. So the less things I have around me actually helps me. So I wanted to make sure that I can reduce a little bit the things that I have, the clutter. I used to be a very minimalistic person. Now having my own space, my own house, unfortunately it collects all the beautiful things that I'm finding. But at the same time I can feel already that it starts to be a lot, and I would like to bring a little bit more of my old minimalistic approach, more like reduce the input from my environment, as it really helps me with feeling a bit less overwhelmed. And part of it is also that I want to use the stuff that I have, and I want to enjoy the things that I have, and make sure that what I have is really what I want, and not keeping things that maybe someone else will have fun with it. And I am keeping it in my house where it just feels like it's too much, and someone else might enjoy it. So this is my first month of doing this practice. We will see how it goes. For the February is a shorter month, so there's only 4 weeks for decks. I'm really excited about those that are coming. And I will come back to you, hopefully again within a month, to share what I used, what pairs that I found, and did I enjoy them or did I not? Is there anything that I would change? I'm trying to be quite flexible with this practice. I'm trying to not make it every single time looking exactly the same. As someone with ADHD, I'm struggling when something starts to feel very closed in certain structure. At the same time, I need some structure. So I'm trying to make sure that even though it's the same practice every week, it looks slightly different every week, and I'm doing a little bit different things with my deck. Sometimes it's more playing with them, sometimes it's more in-depth reading, sometimes it's a little bit of study, sometimes it's looking into other materials that maybe can bring me deeper into the topic. So it is really much more fun and interactive practice. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy it, and maybe you will try some of those decks. Maybe you already enjoy some of those decks. If you have some pairs with those decks that you really enjoy, I'm gonna really be happy if you share them in the comments. Thank you, and see you next time.